All right, Unit 4, Lesson 3.
Hey guys, welcome back to Unit 4, Living in Families, Lesson 3, Families in a Post-Industrial Context. So, our learning goals for this lesson will be to recognize the evolution of post-industrial families as well as their functions. Urban industrial families saw the development of machines, which caused an industrial revolution. This occurred over the last 200 years and could do the work of many people. Paid work and household work became separated, where people left home each day to go to work. Men, adolescent boys, and unmarried girls went to work, whereas women with young children continued to stay at home. It was not until over a century ago in North America and Europe where child labor was banned, and children were instead sent to school. As a result, parents had fewer children because children before that were seen as economic necessities. So by the 1920s, the breadwinner family became known as the consumer family. The husband became the earner and the link between family and larger society. The woman was to be the wife, mother, and housekeeper of the family, and was also the major consumer of the family because they mass-produced clothing, furniture, and food. And children attended school and played. By the 1950s, children were staying in school until their mid-teens. Then this is where teenagers became a distinct age group between children and adults. By the 1970s, married women started to work outside of the home. They were motivated by the desire to buy more goods and services, as well as the availability of jobs. And children were usually sent to earn their keep as a servant/apprentice to a city family. An example of an urban family in Canada is the urban Korean family. In Korea, people take pride in the improvements that they have made in their lifestyle since the end of the Korean War. And homes are traditional in appearance, but built inside a private courtyard. The family car is usually parked outside, and they live a consumer lifestyle. This is a picture of the urban Korean family. Families sit together in an urban Korean family, cross-legged on the floor, to enjoy spicy Korean meals prepared in modern kitchens. And families spend time watching television together before children begin their homework. And this reflects the traditional values of knowledge and a quiet family life. Now, throughout the next few slides, we're going to be looking at control of the family and the role of many things which contribute to the family. So the first one we're going to be looking at is the role of law. Governments develop and enforce laws which regulate behavior within a society. Family law defines the relationships amongst people to ensure that people do not become a burden on society. By setting a minimum age for marriage, society ensures that the topic of consent and economic viability is outlined for all citizens. In the 1700s, Quebec saw that a man needed permission from his father to marry until the age 25, which was the age of the majority. 18 is now the age of majority in Canada, so you can get married without permission. And 16-year-olds can as well, with the permission of parents, but it is not economically and maturely the best option. In 1870, the Married Woman's Property Act was passed. It permitted a married woman to keep her own name and legal identity after marriage. It allowed women to control property owned before marriage. However, women were still financially dependent on their husbands, and many did not own properties of their own in the first place. As family law reformed, it introduced a concept known as community property, where the couple must divide the property they acquired together during marriage equally if they get divorced. This would reduce the woman's feeling of helplessness at the time. However, this law still exists today, where many women are the sole breadwinners. Is this fair? So, divorce law was then changed in 1968, where women had the right to cite irreconcilable differences as a means to divorce, because usually before this time, adultery needed to be proven in court. People usually got married for economic reasons, which caused dependency and caused resentment. So now we're going to be looking at the role of social policy in the context of families. Governments also determine social policy. This is by collecting money through taxation to provide services in order to help families perform their functions. Income taxes are then collected as a person's of one's income. Also, it is collected when goods and services are purchased. So, money raised through taxes is then used to pay for public services such as healthcare, education, fire, and police protection. Tax revenues are also used to supplement a family income for the poor, elderly, disabled, and unemployed. Now we're going to be looking at the role of religion in the context of families. The earliest Canadians, which were the Aboriginals, believed that everything in the world is connected. This can be humans, plants, animals, as well as nature. And their belief focuses on the natural cycles, which are birth, time, seasons, growth, as well as death. The early Aboriginal families enabled people to live out the natural cycle of life in harmony, because families were the center of Aboriginal spirituality, and children were considered to be a gift. Europeans were then surprised by the amount of respect by which Aboriginal children were treated. This was expected to learn by observing, not discipline. Discipline was common in Europe, but within Aboriginal families, it was more about observing. Families were stable in Aboriginal families because family membership determined the role an individual played in the community. The Roman Catholic Church had clear expectations concerning marriage and family life. This was usually for the French and Irish settlers in Quebec. There was a belief that the purpose of marriage is procreation, and using contraception is a sin. In Quebec, families were patriarchal. This meant that women and children were expected to obey the father, and divorce was not to be tolerated. In the 1900s, many families left Europe to come to Canada, and they were being persecuted for their religious beliefs. And when they settled, they looked for farmland. Now we're going to be looking at a specific community in Canada of religious background, known as the Hutterite communities. This is when families own their property communally. Men and women live separate roles based on lives, such as men working outside and women being homemakers. All families eat together in a communal dining hall, and children spend their day in nurseries until reaching the school age. Adolescents then need to leave school early and marry young. And they choose to live a simpler agricultural lifestyle where their religious customs are highly observed. Now we're going to be looking at the role of culture in the context of families. The social construction of gender roles is prevalent here, and most world religions are represented in Canada today, but all of them have people observing different cultures. There's a stance on compatibility which is varied amongst cultures. Arranged marriages are based on a careful consideration of social, cultural, and economic factors, usually by families. Now we're going to be looking at the role of technology in family life. It is possible to live your life working, shopping, visiting friends, and going to school without actually leaving the house. Organs can now be donated. Scientists have cloned exact replicas of animals from tissue samples. Astronauts build a larger space station for men and women. And life-changing choices can be made by the click of one button. The most significant technological development was the electric light, which enabled humans to live and work beyond sunset. And this also set sleep and wake time. Later, instead of doing things by hand, washing machines, dryers, stoves, refrigerators, etc. were created. And the development of communication technology changed how we communicate. Phones allowed us to communicate every single time and maintain contact every single time. Television, music systems such as iPods, phones, laptops, iPads, even MP3s allow us to be entertained with family. And computers allow us to obtain crazy information about the works. And thermostats, for example, protect us from getting too hot and too cold rather than a simple fire. So now we're going to be looking at the contemporary family. Today, the family is the focus of a set of influences. Governments make laws to regulate the formation of families and economic relationships between people. Religion and culture then create expectations, and education ensures further social status. Technology then increases the quality of life, and the media provides us entertainment nowadays. So now I will have